Imagine missing the biggest job interview of your life because you stopped to help a stranger. That's exactly what happened to 22-year-old Nia Johnson. She watched her dream opportunity slip away, until 1 week later, she walked into another interview and came face to face with the same man she had helped. What happened next will change the way you think about kindness forever. "Ma'am, please. I'm going to be late." Nia's voice trembled as she spoke under her breath, staring at the blinking crosswalk signal like it was her only lifeline. Her legs were already sore from the 30-minute bus ride she had just endured, standing the whole way because the seats were full. In her arms, she clutched a slim blue folder. Inside it was her carefully printed resume, references, and a portfolio she had spent weeks perfecting. This interview was everything. It wasn't just another job, it was the job. The kind of position that could pull her out of the cycle of low-wage, dead-end work and give her a real career. She glanced at her phone. 8:45 a.m. exactly 15 minutes left. If she crossed now and kept her pace, she'd walk into that office just on time. Then she saw him. Across the street, an elderly man hunched over a metal cart with 2 bulging grocery bags stacked inside. His back was bent like the weight of the world had been pressing on him for years. He struggled to lift the front wheels over the curb, his thin hands trembling with effort. Nia's eyes scanned the crowd. Businessmen in suits brushed past. A woman with earbuds didn't even glance his way. A group of teenagers laughed as they walked by, completely ignoring him. The old man looked like he might fall at any second. His face was pale, lips pressed tight, and each breath seemed like it took more effort than the last. Nia froze. Her mind split in two. One part screamed, "Keep going. You worked too hard for this. You'll be late." The other whispered, "He needs help. What if he's hurt?" Her heart thudded against her ribs. Every single second she stood there was a second closer to losing the opportunity she had been praying for. She imagined the receptionist's cold tone. "I'm sorry, Miss Johnson, the interviewer has moved on to the next candidate." She imagined weeks of rejection emails, of checking her bank account and wondering how she'd pay rent next month. And yet, she also imagined walking away and seeing him stumble to the ground, alone. Her grip on the folder tightened until her knuckles ached. Finally, she took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Sir, let me help you," she said, hurrying across the street. The old man looked up, startled, his cloudy blue eyes blinking at her as if he couldn't quite believe someone had stopped. "Oh, thank you, dear," he said, his voice soft and raspy. "These bags, they're heavier than they look." Nia set her folder under her arm, grabbed the handle of the cart, and heaved it onto the curb with a grunt. "There we go," she said with a small smile. "Where are you headed?" He hesitated, almost sheepish. "Ah, just a few blocks that way. My apartment building. I'd be grateful if you could walk me there." Nia's heart sank. A few blocks. That could take 10 minutes, maybe more if he walked slowly. She glanced at her phone again. 8:47. She could make up some excuse. She could say, "Sorry, I have somewhere to be." But the thought of abandoning him now felt wrong. "Of course," she said, forcing cheer into her voice. They began walking. His pace was slow, each step deliberate, and every few yards they had to stop so he could catch his breath. Halfway down the block, her phone buzzed. She pulled it from her pocket, the company's HR department. Her thumb hovered over the green icon to answer, but the old man's cart wobbled dangerously, one bag leaning to the side. She shoved the phone back in her pocket and steadied the load. The call went to voicemail. They crossed another street. She tried to ignore the ticking clock in her head, focusing instead on keeping the old man steady. By the time they reached a modest brick apartment building, it was 9:05 a.m. "Let me help you inside," she said, pushing open the heavy glass door. Inside, she guided him to a worn but tidy armchair in the lobby. He sat down with a long sigh of relief. "You've been so kind," he said, looking at her with genuine warmth. "Can I at least get your name?" "Nia Johnson," she replied, smiling faintly. "I had an interview this morning." His face fell. "Oh dear, I hope I didn't make you late." She shrugged lightly, though her chest felt tight. "It's okay. I did the right thing." As she stepped back outside, her phone rang again. She answered this time. "Miss Johnson, the voice on the other end said, clipped and professional. "Since you didn't arrive on time, we've had to proceed with other candidates. Thank you for your interest." The line went dead. Nia stood there for a moment, the city noise buzzing around her, her folder still tucked under her arm. Her dream job had just slipped through her fingers, all because she had stopped. But somewhere deep inside, she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment, this choice, wasn't the end of her story. The old man smiled weakly, his voice trembling as he spoke. "Thank you, dear. These bags are heavier than they look." His hands were thin, the veins pronounced, and the cart's handle wobbled under his grip. Nia set her folder under her arm and pushed down on the handle. The cart jolted forward, bumping up onto the curb with a metallic clank. But it didn't end there. He cleared his throat and glanced down the street. "If it's not too much trouble, my apartment is just 3 blocks that way. Would you mind walking me there?" 3 blocks. Nia's stomach tightened. She had just enough time to maybe make it to her interview if she hurried, but 3 blocks at his pace could easily take 10 or 15 minutes. In her head, 2 voices battled. One said, "Tell him you're in a rush. He'll understand." The other whispered, "What if this was your grandfather? Wouldn't you hope someone would help?" She swallowed hard. "Of course," she said. The walk was slow. Painfully slow. Each step was deliberate, his shoes shuffling against the cracked sidewalk. Every few yards, he had to stop and catch his breath. The cart rattled with every bump, the plastic grocery bags swaying against each other. Halfway there, Nia's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at the screen, HR department, Bright Futures Corporation. Her pulse spiked. This was it. They were probably calling to confirm she was on her way. Her thumb hovered over the green button. She could answer and explain. But just then, the cart tipped dangerously to one side, one of the bags threatening to tumble out. She shoved the phone back in her pocket and steadied the cart. The call went to voicemail. They passed an old bookstore, a closed cafe, and a man sweeping the sidewalk who didn't even glance at them. Nia's mind kept darting to the time. She imagined walking into the office late, her hair slightly frizzed from rushing, her smile nervous. She imagined the interviewer glancing at their watch, unimpressed. Still, she stayed beside him. By the time they reached a modest brick building with peeling paint, it was already 9:05 a.m., 5 minutes past her interview time. Nia tried to keep her voice calm. "Let me get you inside." The lobby smelled faintly of old carpet and furniture polish. She guided him to a worn but sturdy armchair tucked near the mailboxes. He sank into it with a long sigh of relief. "You've been so kind," he said, looking at her with eyes that seemed to have a hint of unspoken gratitude. "Can I at least get your name?" "Nia Johnson," she replied, forcing a faint smile even though her chest felt like it was caving in. "I had an interview today." His brows pulled together in regret. "Ah, I'm sorry if I made you late." She shook her head. "It's okay. I did the right thing." As she stepped back outside into the bright morning light, her phone rang again. She didn't hesitate this time, she answered. A cold, clipped voice greeted her. "Miss Johnson, this is Bright Futures Corporation. Unfortunately, since you didn't arrive on time for your 9 o'clock interview, we have to move forward with other candidates. Thank you for your interest." The line went dead before she could respond. Nia froze on the sidewalk, the sounds of the city washing over her, honking cars, hurried footsteps, the hum of conversation. She clutched her folder tightly, her heartbeat thudding in her ears. Her dream job gone. She took a deep breath, trying to keep her eyes from stinging. This was supposed to be my shot, she thought. Months of applications, weeks of prep, and I blew it. But then she glanced back at the apartment building's doorway. Through the glass, she could just make out the old man in the chair, his head resting back, looking peaceful now. Her chest ached, but not entirely from disappointment. Yes, she had lost something she desperately wanted. But in her gut, she knew she had chosen to be the kind of person she wanted to be. Someone who stopped. Someone who cared. At that moment, she couldn't have guessed that this simple act of kindness was about to change her life in ways she couldn't imagine. That evening, Nia sat alone in her small apartment, the city's neon glow leaking through the blinds. The sound of traffic drifted up from the street below, but inside, Everything felt painfully still. Her folder, the one she had carried to the interview that never happened, lay on the coffee table. She stared at it, replaying the day in her mind. Rent was due in less than 2 weeks. Her savings account was already on life support. One more missed paycheck and she'd be making choices between groceries and electricity. She kept whispering to herself, almost like a mantra, "I helped someone. That matters." She wanted to believe it. She needed to believe it. But no matter how many times she repeated the words, the crushing disappointment still sat heavy in her chest. The next morning, she powered up her aging laptop and went back to job hunting. Click. Scroll. Apply. The cycle repeated over and over. She sent out her resume to anyone who would take it: marketing firms, non-profits, tiny startups she had never heard of. She tweaked her cover letters, highlighted her experience, adjusted her portfolio. Still, nothing. Days passed, each one looking the same. No callbacks. No interviews. Just polite automated emails that began with, "Thank you for your interest," and ended with, "We have decided to move forward with other candidates." Her confidence started to fray. She wondered if the universe was punishing her for making the wrong choice, for putting someone else's needs ahead of her own. A week later, she was sitting at her kitchen table, nursing a cup of instant coffee and scrolling through her inbox, when she saw it. Subject: Interview Invitation, New Horizons Corporation. She frowned. New Horizons Corporation was one of the biggest, most respected companies in the city. She didn't remember applying there. She was sure she would have remembered. But the position in the email matched her skills perfectly. Marketing associate, full-time, with benefits. The message was short and direct. "We were impressed with your background and would like to invite you to an in-person interview. Please confirm your availability." Her heart began to pound. It almost felt too good to be true. She confirmed immediately. For the next 3 days, she prepared like her life depended on it. She studied the company's website, memorized their core values, and even practiced answering interview questions in front of her bathroom mirror. She chose her outfit carefully: a crisp navy blazer over a soft cream blouse, paired with neatly pressed slacks. And this time, she swore to herself, she would be early. On the morning of the interview, Nia left her apartment an hour before she needed to. She took the subway, arriving downtown with time to spare. As she stepped out of the station, she tilted her head back, taking in the sight of New Horizons headquarters. It was massive, a sleek glass and steel structure that reflected the clouds above. The revolving doors spun steadily as employees in sharp suits came and went. She crossed the marble-floored lobby, her heels clicking softly, and approached the front desk. "Good morning," the receptionist greeted her warmly. "Good morning. I'm here for an interview, Nia Johnson." The receptionist smiled. "Of course. You're a little early, but that's never a bad thing. Please have a seat, and someone will come get you shortly." Nia found a seat near the tall windows, sunlight spilling across the polished floors. From her vantage point, she could see the entire lobby, the modern art installations, the curved staircase leading to the mezzanine, the hum of quiet conversations. She smoothed her blazer and tried to calm the flutter in her stomach. 30 minutes early. She was determined not to repeat the same mistake. She didn't know it yet, but in just a few moments, she was going to come face to face with someone who would change everything. Someone she already knew. When the receptionist finally called her name, Nia rose from her seat, smoothing her blazer one last time. Her palms felt damp, but she told herself to stay calm. "Right this way," the receptionist said with a warm smile, leading her down a wide hallway lined with framed photographs, snapshots of company milestones, charity events, and award ceremonies. The carpet muffled their footsteps, but Nia could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. They stopped in front of a large double door made of dark polished wood. The receptionist knocked gently before opening it. "Miss Johnson is here," she announced. Nia stepped inside, and froze. It was a massive corner office, flooded with natural light from floor-to-ceiling windows. The city skyline stretched out in the distance, skyscrapers gleaming in the sun. A sleek desk made of glass and steel stood near the windows, a tall leather chair turned toward her. And in that chair, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit, silver hair neatly combed back, sat the old man she had helped. Her jaw dropped. He was smiling. Not the frail, tentative smile she had seen when he was struggling with his groceries, but one of quiet authority and confidence. "Miss Johnson," he said warmly, his voice steady and commanding. "Good to see you again." Nia blinked, struggling to process what she was seeing. You're the CEO?" "Yes," he replied, leaning back in his chair with a hint of amusement in his eyes. "My name is Charles Whitaker. I own New Horizons Corporation." Her mouth opened and closed as she tried to find the right words. I didn't know. I thought." He held up a hand gently, stopping her mid-sentence. "That day, I wasn't testing anyone. I truly needed help. My doctor had told me to avoid lifting heavy weights, but I was stubborn. And there I was, stuck on the street with no one stopping, until you." His gaze locked on hers. "You didn't know who I was. You had somewhere important to be, and you still chose to help me, even when it cost you something significant." Nia's heart pounded. She could feel her cheeks warming. "That," he continued, "told me more about your character than any resume or cover letter ever could." She shifted slightly, unsure whether to speak or just listen. The air in the room felt charged, like something important was about to happen. "I called your former interviewer," Charles went on. "They confirmed you missed the appointment that day. But I also told them I'd be meeting you personally." He leaned forward, his elbows resting on the desk. "People with integrity are rare, Miss Johnson, and we need them here." Nia swallowed hard. "Sir, I thought I'd ruined my chances. I went home that day feeling like I'd made the biggest mistake of my life." He shook his head. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. The right one. In business, as in life, we need people who do the right thing even when no one's watching." He gestured toward a chair in front of his desk. "Please, sit." Nia slowly lowered herself into the plush leather seat, her mind still spinning. Charles smiled. "Let's talk about your skills, your goals, and where you see yourself in this company. Because, Miss Johnson, I believe you can go far here." For the next 45 minutes, they spoke, not just about her qualifications, but about her ideas, her values, and how she approached challenges. Charles listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes. When they finally wrapped up, he closed his notebook and stood. "Nia," he said, extending his hand, "I'd like to offer you a position here. Full-time. With benefits. And I'll personally mentor you." Her breath caught. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he replied with a grin. "And make sure you keep being the kind of person who stops to help." She laughed softly, shaking his hand. "Yes. Absolutely yes." As she left the office, walking through the bright, bustling lobby, Nia thought back to that morning a week ago. She had walked away from that old man's apartment believing she had lost everything. But in truth, she had gained something far greater. Not just a job, but a future built on doing the right thing. They talked for nearly an hour. But it wasn't the kind of interview Nia had been preparing for. Charles didn't just want to hear about the bullet points on her resume. He didn't ask her to list her previous roles in chronological order or rattle off her biggest achievements. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and asked, "What drives you, Miss Johnson? What do you want your life to look like in 5 years? 10? At first, Nia hesitated, unsure how to answer. But something about his tone, calm, genuine, interested, encouraged her to speak from the heart. She told him about her love for creative problem-solving, how she enjoyed helping small businesses grow their brands. She explained her belief that work should have meaning, that companies had a responsibility to give back to their communities. Charles listened, nodding occasionally, asking follow-up questions that dug deeper. They talked about challenges she had faced in past jobs, moments she had wanted to quit but didn't, and how she measured success beyond money. Somehow, the conversation felt less like an interview and more like a mentorship session. At the end, Charles smiled warmly. "Nia," he said, his voice steady but kind, "how would you like to start next Monday? Full benefits. Salary above the industry average. And," he leaned forward slightly, "a mentorship program with me personally." For a moment, Nia couldn't speak. Her throat tightened, and she felt a rush of emotions: shock, relief, gratitude. Yes. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much," she said, her voice trembling. Tears welled in her eyes, threatening to spill over. Charles simply nodded. "I'm not doing you a favor, Miss Johnson. You earned this. Not because of your resume alone, but because of the kind of person you are. Integrity is hard to find, and it's even harder to teach. You already have it." As she left the office, the hum of conversation and the sound of clacking keyboards filled the hallways. But Nia barely heard them. Her mind was replaying everything that had happened in the last week. That morning when she had first seen him, frail, struggling with his groceries, she had wrestled with herself. She had walked away from that encounter believing she had made a terrible mistake. She had lost her interview, her chance at a stable future, all because she couldn't ignore someone in need. And yet, here she was, walking through the gleaming glass lobby of one of the most respected companies in the city, with a job offer in her hand and the CEO's personal mentorship waiting for her. She stepped outside into the crisp afternoon air. The city skyline seemed brighter somehow, the streets a little more alive. As she made her way down the sidewalk, she realized something profound. Success isn't always about perfect timing, flawless preparation, or being in the right place at the right moment. Sometimes, the road to success is messy and unpredictable. Sometimes, it takes a detour, through a stranger's struggle, a moment of kindness, and a decision that doesn't make logical sense in the moment. That detour had changed her life. She thought about all the little things that had to happen for this to work out the way it did: missing the bus earlier that week, taking that particular route to her interview, looking up at the exact moment she saw Charles struggling at the curb. One choice had set off a chain reaction she never could have planned. A smile crept across her face. She wasn't just starting a job next week, she was stepping into a future she never could have imagined. A future built not only on her skills but on the values that defined her. And maybe, she thought, that was the real reward. Not the paycheck, not the title, but knowing that she had been true to herself even when it cost her something. For Nia Johnson, one simple decision to stop and help had rewritten her story entirely. And as she disappeared into the busy crowd, she knew one thing for sure: she would carry that lesson with her for the rest of her life. If Nia's story inspired you, remember, sometimes the smallest act of kindness can lead to the biggest opportunities. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more powerful stories, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.